Hey, so welcome to Mount Shasta.
This is Prageet,
I'm Julianne.
and this is a very, very special guest. And what's your name?
Satori.
Use this.
Satori.
And Satori is a really special person because how old are you now, Satori?
8.
She's 8 years old. And how old were you when you came to the first Stargate workshop?
1.5.
Yeah, so since 1.5, she's been connected to the Stargate energies. And it's really special because she and her mum have come up and they've been staying with us for a couple of days. So we thought we'd introduce you to one of our greatest Stargate people.
Hi.
Okay, thank you so much, Satori. So, welcome everyone. This podcast is going to be focused on the nature of reality. And that's a challenging one because there's so many different aspects to what we might call reality. There's so many different ways of experiencing not just what's happening here in the third dimension, but the greater reality of what Alcazar often calls the quantum field or the field of oneness.
So we're sort of born into this reality, and we don't come with an instruction manual. We actually have no idea what we're doing here. And so I was telling Prageet the other night, I was like, it's kind of terrifying being human because it's like we really don't know like what's going on here. We're born and then we know that we're like on this ride and someday we're going to die. But lucky for us, there's actually this vast beauty to this quantum reality, which is sort of like the real reality, and this third dimensional reality is like what?
Well, Alcazar calls it a construct. Alcazar describes it, the reality as the field of oneness or the quantum field. And within that field is this third dimensional reality, which has been created in order for the greater self, our super consciousness, that part of us that is just consciousness, has created this third dimension so that we can experience being physical, where we can experience the joys of being in nature and being in the world, being physical, and also experiencing contrast, duality.
So we have our ups and our downs. We have our good days and our bad days. We have the highs and the euphorias. And we also have the depths of despair and sadness and all of the emotions here.
And the male and the female, which is the major contrast.
Hot and the cold.
Yeah. So it's an experiential place. And it's a place that as most of us begin to tune into and feel, that we come back to again and again, continuing to develop our abilities and our understanding of this 3D reality.
And really, one of the wonders of the third dimensional reality is that we forget who we actually are. Because if you think about our beingness, if you imagine our super consciousness as being this all-knowing kind of like blissful sentience, then coming here and forgetting about all of that is actually quite amazing.
Alcazar has said that we actually choose to come and have this experience. We choose to come into duality rather than being in the place where we're always living the most perfect thing without question, simply because that's in our nature. In this 3D reality where we have the possibility of choice, the possibility of the contrast, then it's an experience, and we enjoy the challenge of both the positive and the negative and deciding what direction we're going to go in.
And we just did this series, a webinar series with Dr. Raymond Moody, who's been called like the father of the near-death experience research movement. And one of the things that he mentioned was I think he was quoting somebody, but he said, God created man because God enjoys stories. And I was like, yes, like I love that as an idea or as a concept, because really we come here. And what I've always felt about my life is that everything is spiritual. It's not just the meditative states. It's not just the spiritual quest that's spiritual. It's actually some of the most spiritual moments are just when we're living out our stories. From the moment that we take our first breath, it's a spiritual journey, being human.
And so as we evolve, we begin to become aware of there's more than this 3D reality. And then we start being introduced to the concept of the beyond. The religions have different ways of explaining it, but the kind of the New Age arena has more of a concept of guides and beings, angels, masters, star families, all being available to assist us as we grow our awareness of these other dimensions. And so the focus today is on the nature of reality. And so already we can see that reality is far more than just this third dimensional experience. And part of the Stargate work is to assist people having experiences of these greater realities. Not so much that they're more important, but just greater or larger than this the 3D experience.
Well, really what the Stargate does is it's higher dimensional consciousnesses that create an energy field that allows you to have multidimensional experiences. But it also allows you to plug into an energy field of love and bliss and oneness and enlightenment. And so when you have those experiences, when you don't just hear about higher dimensional beings and intelligence, but you feel it all around you, it actually lets your mind relax in this way, and it plugs you into that knowingness, because we all have that part of ourselves that feels like we're more than just the body. It's like a whisper. And so if you plug into an energy field that lets you relax completely, and then suddenly your awareness is expanded and you actually feel your beingness, and you feel that whisper become like an echo chamber where you can resonate with that part of yourself, it changes things. And it's almost a device to allow you to bring that super consciousness as like a walkie-talkie here. So you learn actually how to communicate with this part of yourself that is in this reality, in your humanness, but it's also beyond this reality.
Alcazar describes it in this way. He says, you are much more than the body. The real you is your super consciousness, which exists in the quantum field. And that a small part of that consciousness is embodied, and that part of the spiritual expansion, spiritual growth, is raising your vibration so that more of this super consciousness can actually come into this physical reality. And as that happens, your life becomes far more abundant on all levels, more love, more joy, more celebration.
And how amazing is it that as human beings, we're all here on this planet, and the kind of like 21st century scientific dogma is like, this is all that there is. You are a biological organism that is somehow miraculously sentient, and yet we have no idea what's really going on here. And so it's like, so everyone has their own path, and everybody gets to explore this reality and almost like create their own ways of relating to it. But it's amazing to realize that we are, in fact, it's not just a story, it's not just a nice idea. We really are more, and you can tap into it and you can know it directly for yourself. And there are many different portals into having clues about what this construct is and what else is out there and available.
The beautiful thing is that leading edge science is beginning to realize this. Some of the scientists that are really exploring science and consciousness are beginning to discover that actually science, if it broadens its awareness, can start to explain some of these spiritual concepts that have been around since probably the beginning of time, because the ancients knew far more from a spiritual point of view than our scientists do today. So our intention today is to talk about some of the different ways that you can start to explore this greater reality, how you can explore some of the things that are accessible in the quantum field. And again, that's part of what we do with the Stargate. And we create an energetic field using the consciousness of the Stargate and many of the guides that will come and support the process. And we simply raise your vibration in a meditation state and introduce you to various experiences of the guides, the angels, what we call the star families. Because when we invite them in, you can actually feel them coming. And those people that have their inner vision opened already can actually see the guides coming into the room. And that's quite an amazing experience if you haven't had that before, to actually feel the guides coming in response to you. If you invite the angels, for example, and all of a sudden the energy all around you changes and you feel this very loving presence. And the angels, their vibration actually touches you. You can feel it. And so that's the beginning ways of introducing into some of these greater realities.
And really, the beauty of this isn't that, like, oh, the angels are these amazing beings. They are, yeah. But the beauty of this is they vibrate you, and your sensitivity opens even more. And then you're like, whoa, I'm an amazing being. And that's where the secret sauce is. That's where, because our true nature actually is that we are super intelligent, super loving beings who have come here to forget that and have this human experience. But humanity itself is on this trajectory where you hear stories of Atlantis and Lemuria, these early civilizations, and even in Egypt and in India, there are these roots of the ancient wisdom that point to yogis knowing about atoms 2,000 years ago. And they point to far more tapping into wisdom in a non-scientific, yet somehow directly right on way. So really what the trajectory has been is from this like higher consciousness place in ancient times on Earth into like dipping down into the dark ages, into like just extremes of unconsciousness, and coming back up and up and up again. And it is an exponential process. So the Stargate, really, the whole mission statement of the Stargate work is to assist in the awakening of humanity.
And the beautiful thing is those ancient masters, those enlightened beings who held those frequencies before, are available even now. And so, for example, the one known as Jesus and his so-called miracles, creating in this 3D reality with awareness. And he would say, all this and more you can do. And it's an indication that this is available to all of us. This so-called enlightened state is available to all of us. And humanity is changing. Consciousness is rising. And all kinds of wonderful things start to happen as your vibration starts to go up and you maintain that higher level of awareness, that higher level of intention to open up to the greater reality. So one of the things that Alcazar talks about when we do the Stargate meditations is the different dimensions. And he says that there's a challenge to talk about the quantum field and some of these other aspects. The challenge is the language. It's almost impossible to describe the reality beyond our physical because our language is designed to communicate on this level. We don't have the languaging to describe what it's like in these higher dimensions.
It really is something that needs to be experienced. And probably if you've found this podcast or if you're listening to this, you probably already have had tastes of going beyond this reality. And it's actually, I think, far more common than we may know.
Well, as you mentioned, we did something with Dr. Raymond Moody recently, and he's talking about near-death experiences, which are basically the consciousness leaving the body and going out into the oneness and meeting relatives sometimes, or being in a beautiful, brilliant light sometimes. It's different for everyone. And then coming back into the third dimension. And so they have these experiences in a tragic way, in a sense, almost their body almost dying. But it's possible to have these wonderful experiences without threatening the body. And again, that's just another element of what starts to happen as you start to explore the possibilities.
Well, and as part of doing this series with Dr. Moody, some of our audience have been coming forward with their experiences, and it's really actually amazing to hear about people who, through intensive Vipassana meditation, for example, they sometimes spontaneously will leave the body and go to these like light realms. And it's almost always described as being a state of bliss, this higher dimensional light that feels amazing, and a sense of connecting to this reality that feels more real than our third dimensional reality, and seeing colors that don't exist on the earth. These are the kinds of just like highly benevolent and amazing things that exist in one of the things Dr. Moody says is actually what these NDEs or out-of-body experiences point to, is that the real reality is actually consciousness. So when you go out, you actually experience a realm of pure consciousness. And then many people say when they come back to this third dimensional reality, it's almost like it is black and white compared to the experiences that they have in the beyond.
And so part of this little talk that we're giving today on this podcast is to introduce you to some other aspects of reality. One of these aspects is that you are far more than you know. And one of the beautiful things that started to happen for many people is that our guide Alcazar has introduced the concept of all these benevolent beings that live out there in the universe. We call them star families, beings like the Pleiadians, which is the name that many people recognize, and the Arcturans, and the Sirians, and so on. And people like that concept, but the intention of the Stargate work is to give people experiences, because having a belief is one thing, and it's just that, a belief. You don't know. But with the connection, when you invite the Pleiadians and you can feel them coming to you, that's a very different reality. It becomes your knowing. In fact, there was a beautiful elderly lady, maybe in her 70s or so, who came to an evening once, and I think it was in Germany, I'm not sure. But she came to an evening, and she said when she introduced herself, I'm not really sure why I came, but it sounded interesting. But what happened for her was in one of the meditations, afterwards she was very expressive and excited. She said, in the middle of the meditation, all of a sudden, this beautiful being was standing in front of me, and he had a kind of a blue energy. And he just looked at me, and it just felt like so much love. And after the meditation, she realized that a problem that she'd had with her body was gone. So just with that connection and that allowing the love of the Pleiadian, it had healed her body. So the guides in these various forms, the masters, the star families, they're available to assist us, to help us move back to the more perfect blueprint of who we are.
And it is our true nature. So really, we're resonating with this energy field that like we're so used to swimming in. That's why oftentimes people get into Stargate energies or other ways of tapping into these altered states, and they're like, oh, it felt like coming home.
Mm. Mm. And the beautiful thing is that when you allow these higher dimensional energies just to immerse you in love is an overused word, but in this case it really feels right to be using it. You're immersed in this energetic of love, of balance. And one of the things that Alcazar says is that, as our scientists say too, everything is vibration. And so even the imbalance that we have in our body, the dis-ease or the illness, that too is a vibration. The various limitations that we have, the habit patterns that we would prefer were not there, it's a vibration. And so what Alcazar says is that with any vibration, you can bring in an additional energetic, an additional vibration that will bring it back into balance, move it back towards perfection. And so the work with the Stargate is literally energy work, which brings frequencies to the individual that allow you to move back towards your perfection. And that allows these changes to happen with ease and grace. It allows you to simply relax with the intention of letting go and receiving the support, with the intention of wanting to change, with the intention of your commitment to yourself, of being ready to change, to move into a higher state of being. And then the energetics support that happening, be it a physical change or a mental or emotional change. All these things are possible simply by being in the beautiful energy of the masters and the star families.
And actually, it's really beautiful because we just had a physicist come and take energy measurements of participants before and after like a 4-hour workshop. And what you can see in the readouts of their energy field is the before there'll be like some gaps in their energy field. It's like visualized like this haze around it's sort of like an aura visualization. And then in the after, it's so cool because it's like whoosh, it's like full and it
beautiful and balanced and energized.
And so it's like, wow, like that's such a cool visualization on what so many of us have felt so many times after we do some form of going into an altered state. It's like, boom, balance, like we're back online. And we need that. And Alcazar actually talks about spiritual exploration, whether it's immersing yourself in a high vibrational energy field, or it's leaving your body to go explore other dimensional realities. It's not to be used as an escape. It's actually to be used as its reinvigoration of your humanness. So there are states of consciousness that we can tap into that let us be more in the oneness while we're still here, more in our super consciousness while we're still here. So all this is just to lay a foundation, and we'll have Alcazar come through in a few minutes and talk. I want to hear him talk about what is this reality and what are the other dimensional realities that are out there.
Okay, well, let's see. Beloved ones, we greet thee, tis Alcazar. And as we talk to you, we invite you just to kind of relax a little bit. Just because when we talk, it is not just words that we are sharing with you. We are sharing an energetic from beyond this, your third dimensional reality. And so as we talk, we are sharing our presence with you in a very soft, gentle, unintrusive way. So, the nature of reality. How do you define reality? Perhaps one way is what you experience is real for you. As your awareness grows, as your willingness to experience beyond that which you have known already, then greater realities open for you. You are not the body. Most of you are aware of that in a sense, and you have this understanding or belief that you have lived many lifetimes. But you do not remember these past lives. It is a beautiful concept. One of the ways that we work with you energetically when you are ready is to begin to allow you, to support you in accessing that which you call your Akashic record or the records of your past life experiences. It is important as you evolve spiritually to know, not just as a concept, but to know from your own remembering that you have lived here before. You have learned many things before in other lifetimes. You have skills and abilities from other lifetimes which you can then re-access in your current life. And so let us say this, the superconsciousness which exists in the quantum field is the real you. Your superconsciousness is having an experience through the physical body of enjoying this reality, of living and learning within it. And the greater purpose of being in the body over these many lifetimes is to evolve the human aspect in order to allow a higher vibration within the body, in order to allow more of this super consciousness to live through the body. And what that results in is your humanness having a wondrous experience, a wondrous knowing of who you are. As you begin to evolve, you begin to remember some of these past lives and access some of these abilities. This Akashic record, however, it does not just store the lifetimes that you have lived here in your humanness. Your Akashic record also has the memory of where you came from before you became human. Yes, on a human time scale, it is eons ago. But on a universal time scale, it was not so long ago that your consciousness came to the earth. Before here, you lived elsewhere. You are all from the stars. Originally, you have all lived in civilizations, in other realities. And then you chose to come here. You chose to have this experience. You chose to come to this earth. Why? These various civilizations have existed in your universe for millions and billions of your Earth years. They have evolved greatly. And allow for the possibility. Can you imagine for a moment that all these civilizations, highly advanced, highly evolved, what is next for them? And so there was a decision made together. Let us create another place, which is your earth. Let us create this place, and volunteers will come from all the various civilizations. They will come to be here together to create something new. How do we do this? So there were certain parameters which individuals had to agree to. When your consciousness came from these other places, you would all have to put on this human bodysuit, as we like to call it, so that you all look the same. Because some of the body types that you have in these other dimensional realities are not always a humanoid form. So the agreement was that you'd all look the same. The next agreement was that you would forget temporarily where you came from. And so you came from different places, and then you agreed to forget where you had come from, and it was understood that you would go down into unconsciousness. Why? Because by forgetting your past and then mixing and merging your DNA from all the different realities from which you had come, your higher dimensional DNA, mixing and merging, creating a whole new potential. And now humanity is coming out of those dark ages, as you call them. Humanity is becoming conscious again. The whole of the universe is watching and waiting. Why? Because nobody knows what you are going to create here. Nobody knows that as you start to access the vast stores of wisdom and knowledge that you have within you, nobody knows what is going to be created. We have said in the past that humanity is on the leading edge of creation. That seems a little ridiculous if you look at your world right now. But if you look with the perspective that we have just described, that the whole wisdom and knowledge of the universe has been brought here. It is accessible through you as you raise your vibration and connect to these higher aspects of yourself. We are together creating something that has never occurred in the universe before now. All of you here are doing that. You may judge others for how they are living their lives. You may criticize, but understand these people and yourself are slowly coming out of deep unconsciousness to create a marvel, to create the gem of the universe. Allow for that possibility. Allow for the possibility that you have a part to play in this. Your part is to become more conscious, more awake, more aware. And this is why we have brought the Stargate to humanity, to support individuals as well as humanity as a whole. We are here to support you in awakening, to discover the beauty, the amazing person that you truly are.
And so, beloved ones, you have a vast potential. It is time for you to know, not with information from the mind, but through your own experiencing, to know the vastness that you are. Your spirit or your soul, when it comes to express in this universe, it actually has the ability to divide itself into 12 different aspects. Your humanness is one of these 12. There are other aspects of your higher self expressing in other dimensional realities. This one, Pragit, has spoken to you of his experience leaving the body, going to the craft of the Galactic Command, and they greeted him with warmth, with their applause. Why? Because, as he has said, they told him, this is the first time you have come here consciously. You come here in your sleep state all the time.
Mhm.
So, beloveds, can you be open to the possibility that you already know this vast part of self, that you can learn slowly, organically, how to consciously start to remember who you already are?
Mm. That's interesting, Alcazar, because when you say that, I realized that when I went up to that craft for the first time, my mind was like in awe of what was happening, but there was also this, I felt very familiar and very at home there. So, yeah,
Indeed.
I hadn't really kind of noticed that part of it before. Cool. Yeah.
So, beloved one, there is more for you to experience
Good. I'm
in
ready.
that reality.
Yeah.
You are ready.
Mm.
Are you? So, beloved ones, this is something that this one, Julianne, has also experienced. She would describe it as a kind of bleed through, a memory that she did not remember a moment in time of remembering. But it happened after she heard this one Pragit tell his story of going to the craft out of body for the first time. And she was driving home from this very first Stargate experience evening. And her mind said, I have this memory of being like an orb of consciousness, visiting my own aspect in the Galactic Command. And she was allowed as a sort of lure or a gift. It is like a way of, through your own knowingness, knowing that these other dimensional realities exist. She was gifted with this remembering of one of her sleep state visits to her own aspect, who happens to be a lone pilot, we call him. He is a male in that reality. And the body form is humanoid, just as you are humanoid, and yet they are in perfect health and fitness. So we share this with you so that you are open to the possibility that you can have your own remembrances come to you. They happen quite spontaneously. You cannot plan for it. But if you immerse yourself in these energies, there is a possibility, there is a potential of this awakening. It is giving the green light to your guides also. I would like to have these experiences. And we will always respond in the way that is most appropriate to you in the moment.
Yeah, because there have been two other aspects of my higher self or my soul which have introduced them to me, and each time it was a surprise. The second one that came was from the dragon realm, and his name is Thran. And what I've realized as I've just allowed that energy to come through is that so many people are feeling a connection with the dragons. And a few years ago, if I wouldn't have kind of allowed for that as a reality, I thought it was a fairy story. But Alcazar said, no, these are not fairy stories. Actually, it wasn't Alcazar, it was Ran. that was saying, these are not fairy stories. These so-called fairy stories and stories about the dragons being evil and eating princesses and all that kind of thing were stories created by the various religions to drive people away from that high dimensional connection and forcing them into the particular religions. And now what's starting to happen is the individuals are becoming more empowered and they're deciding for themselves. And in that openness, more and more people are feeling the dragon energies. And the last one that came was really beautiful because it was a feminine energy called Sinfonia, and she's actually a person, a mermaid. And I haven't had a lot of connection with her yet, but it was really very touching.
It was really amazing because when she came through, Symphonia, actually, we learned later, is a word in Greek that means harmony. And she came through and talked about the mer people living in this collective where they're all interconnected, and it felt like telepathic with each other. So these aspects, when they come through, they bring gifts, and it sounds ridiculous from the mind, right? Like a dragon and a mermaid. And I happen to have discovered an aspect of myself that is experiencing life in another dimensional reality where the higher self incarnates in a triad of 3 unicorns. And we found this out quite organically because one day after a Stargate workshop when I was like 24, 23 years old, I suddenly was like, I think I can bring through unicorn energy. And I just knew that I could. And so I tried it. And all my friends around me who were also into the Stargate were like, yeah, we can feel that. And these kind of like these melodic sounds wanted to come through with the energies. And so I just allowed that to happen. And Pergi asked me to do it in a workshop in Maui. And so I did. And it was the first time that I had done it in an actual gathering. And afterward, these people, they were like, that was so great, and you guys should go celebrate and maybe go do a sauna. And so we were like, okay. And I promise I'm telling you this story for a reason. Because we're sat in this infrared sauna on Maui, and Prageet sat on a bench, and I'm sat on another bench, and we're facing each other. And suddenly, Prageet's inner vision clicks on, which is something that is a rare
don't usually see
gift for him. And so he suddenly sees this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just sat there opposite Julianne, and then all of a sudden, I see this big white unicorn face looking at me. And
no, it was, I'll tell it for you. I'm Prageet's memory.
Yeah.
No, it was standing to the side of me.
Oh, that's right. That's how it started.
And then there were two, it was like a male standing to the side of me, and there were 2 females in the background in this kind of glade in the forest. Kind of grazing.
Yeah. And then this unicorn kind of stepped into Julianne and was looking straight at me.
And I had no idea this was happening yet. And Prageet said I like shifted in my seat, like kind of like readjusting. And
you go on.
Yeah. So basically Prageet said that suddenly this unicorn's looking essentially like through my eyes, like interfaced with my body at him. And so he's like, whoa, and he tells me what's happening. And then he says, oh, I think they want to say something because the unicorn is like hoofing the ground, like impatiently. And so I tuned in, and the message that came through was, we're letting you see us as a thank you for what you're doing for Julianne. And it was amazing because after that experience, it was like, okay, so the unicorns incarnate as 3. And I have this higher dimensional aspect that is these unicorns. And because of the interfacing that Prageet kind of like told me it was happening, I was able to then have this really joyful experience of the multidimensional aspect of myself actually connecting to my human part. And that is something that is a really, really special experience. I've heard someone else who I had a session with recently who was saying she's having to be in hospitals a lot because her husband is ill. And she was saying, she's been doing the Stargate work for a while. She was saying, okay, I'm starting to feel like it's almost like someone is looking through my eyes and is really curious about what's going on in these hospitals and how people are being treated, and like, hey, that's not the way that person should be like related to right now, and that's not the so Alcazar came through in this session and told this lady that she actually has an aspect of herself that's a medic in one of these like craft, not the Galactic Command, but a similar reality. And this medic is very curious about what's happening on the Earth right now. And so it's sort of like she's becoming a window for this aspect of herself. And the fascinating thing about this is what Prageet experienced when he went out of body and met his aspect, the commander, in the Galactic Command, was that they were walking alongside each other, and then they merged, right? And what happened when they merged was that suddenly...
I knew everything about what was going on the ship around, yeah.
So to me, this is just one of the coolest things about the Stargate work, is that it plugs us into the potential of these other aspects of ourselves having vast skills, abilities, knowledge, wisdom that we can tune into. And it makes the awakening of humanity have this totally juicy allure to it, because it's like suddenly I get what Alcazar says, that there's this explosion of creativity that's waiting to happen here.
Yeah, so the nature of reality. We've kind of hinted at some of the other possibilities.
Yeah.
And our guide Alcazar is really wanting to assist us individually and as humanity to open, to experience more, to bring more incredible experiences into our lives.
So what we were thinking to create is actually a meditation experience on the next podcast, so that you guys can actually tune in and immerse yourselves in these energies and feel for yourself, is this a reality, or are these two people just like on some kind of amazing and wonderful adventure? Or is
well, it's definitely an amazing...
It definitely is an amazing adventure.
Yeah, but it's one that we want to share with you if you're interested. So
tune in,
much.
And we'll look forward to sharing the experiential aspect of this exploration of the nature of reality.
See you next time.
Stay super conscious.